Good morning, everybody. Steve here in San Jose, California, and this is my first trip or my first overnight visit to San Jose. I spent last night here at the airport Motel 6, which is located at the corner of First Street and Brokaw Road. As you can see, it's right next to the freeway, but my room fortunately happened to be on the back side, which faced the opposite direction of the freeway, so there was no freeway noise at all. Or at least not as much noise as usual when it comes to these hotels that are right next to the freeway. I've stayed in a lot of Motel 6s around the country, and I have to say this is the smallest Motel 6 room that I've stayed in. And it was the most expensive. With all of the taxes included, it came to over $110, but I asked for the senior discount, or maybe it was the AAA discount, I can't remember now. But with the discount, it came to just a little under $100 for the night. The bed and the room were very comfortable. And I guess to be this close to downtown San Jose, $100 for the night wasn't that bad. I just packed up my car and I'm getting ready to head west to the historic town of Saratoga, which according to the map is around 13 miles west of here. I don't know if it's considered a suburb of San Jose, but it's pretty nearby. And this is 2021, the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks that took place on September 11th, 2001. So on this 20th anniversary of one of the most shocking and memorable and awful days in American history, I wanted to remember one of the heroes from that day. The story I wanted to share with you today is about one of those heroes who died on Flight 93. As I'm sure many of you remember, that flight is the plane that didn't crash into the towers, the Twin Towers. It crashed into an open field in Shankesville, Pennsylvania. There's a monument there, and the person I'm here to visit today here in California has his name etched in stone there, along with the others who perished that day on that flight. But I'm not aware of any of the other ones having gravesites here in California to visit. If the name Mark Bingham rings a bell, it's because he was one of a group of passengers on that plane that day who did everything in his power to make sure that that plane didn't crash into its intended location, which most people believe was either the White House or the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. After the Twin Towers were struck, Flight 93 hadn't yet reached its destination, and by then the event was all over the news, and people were frantically calling their loved ones, and the people who were in the air were calling their loved ones. I don't remember if he called his family or they called him, but he was told what had happened, so obviously he knew what was happening, and he knew what was about to happen. So instead of just sitting there, helplessly awaiting his fate, he decided to take action. Bingham and a couple of others on board decided to do whatever they could do to make sure that the plane didn't make it to Washington, D.C., and they were successful. They overpowered the Al-Qaeda terrorists, and the plane ended up crashing into an open field, doing the least amount of damage possible. Of course, everyone on board, especially Bingham and his fellow heroes, they all knew what their fate would be, but they decided to go out with one selfless act. How many of us could have done that? I don't know. It's, when you think about it, it's pretty amazing the courage it would take to act in a situation like that, knowing that you only had moments to live. Mark was only 31 years old at the time. He was a successful businessman, and I think he had businesses here in the San Francisco area and also in either Boston or New York, which is why he was flying back and forth. He was also gay. He was another gay hero, and I don't know if that's part of the reason his story made such an impact that day or not, but whether or not it had anything to do with the coverage of his heroic act, it's definitely something that is important to remember. Reporting on gay heroes throughout history has happened very seldomly. It doesn't mean there haven't been other gay heroes. It just means that in the past, they were all in the closet, they were invisible, or even if the press knew about who they really were, they often buried the story or didn't mention that particular aspect of the story. In addition to what he did that day, Bingham was also a championship rugby player who started the very first gay rugby team here in the San Francisco area. His life seemed to be all about shattering gay stereotypes, so for the history books, I wanted to come here today to pay my respects, visit his gravesite, and share his story with all of you, just in case you missed it. This is one of the smallest cemeteries that I visited, but I have to say it's one of the most beautiful, and it's in a beautiful location. And this tiny little quaint town just blocks away, Saratoga, seems like a really, really beautiful little B&B kind of San Francisco getaway with all the little quaint shops and the downtown area. It looks like it's definitely a getaway destination. I assume Bingham must have lived nearby, or his family lives nearby, which is why he's buried here. And I can't help but notice just how peaceful and quiet and tranquil it is. Just the exact opposite of the day he died. So it seems as if he probably is really, truly resting in peace, knowing that he did more than almost all of us would have done in a situation like that. So here's to Mark Bingham and all the other gay heroes out there, sung and unsung, known and unknown, now and in the past. This week I want to thank my newest Patreon supporter, David Monk. Thank you, David, for your very kind donation to my channel. It's very appreciated. I also want to thank all of you who have taken the time to subscribe and to leave comments and to give thumbs up. All of that means a lot too, and definitely helps this tiny little channel to grow. So until our next trip to the cemetery together, thanks for sharing the memories, everybody.